Through the night of combat danger, this heart of power, the three engines of a patrol torpedo boat, could never stop. The lives of a crew of Americans depended on them. Facing an armored world with nothing but speed, the PT boat made a bet every time it roared into action. Bet you 10 lives I can get in, blast you, and get away before you can touch me. The Army rescue boat of the Air Forces raced against time, the seconds in which a downed plane sank, or the minutes it took to freeze a flyer in winter oceans. The Warhawk carried a single pursuit pilot who put his trust in it. British flyers swore by their Hurricane, nicknamed Can Opener, when its 40-millimeter guns ripped open Nazi tanks in Africa. Members of Lancaster crews learned that engine failure on a deep penetration of Germany was the least of their worries. Fastest of bombers, the Mosquito made the Berlin run on speed alone. All planes returned safely was the communique celebrating their nightly triumphs. The Mustang, fastest of the fighters before jet planes went to work, climbed higher too. It wasn't as big as some, and it couldn't cook, but flyers fell in love with it. You can hear them snarling away up there and feel the hard courage. They can dive 40,000 feet and not get heart failure. Want to look at a heart like that? The power inside all 5 planes? There she be, the Packard version of the Rolls-Royce engine sitting on the test block, pretty as a picture. Strong as 1,500 horses, equal to the weight of one. Want to see the heart of an Elco PT boat, mighty midget of the U.S. Navy? Or of an Army Air Force rescue boat? This is the Packard Marine engine. It is a 60-degree V-12 aircraft type water-cooled supercharged engine of 1,500 horsepower. The boys on a PT boat housing 3 of these say it'd fly if they opened the hatches. These engines have a home, the giant rooms of the Packard factories. They come into first being in the pouring hot metal of the foundry. The clangor of the forge is their birth cry. They are shaped in an intricately organized jungle of machinery, formed on the varied devices typical of the industrial might of America. Thousands of machines. The intimate touch is not lacking when a profilometer measures a skin or surface texture in millionths of an inch. These engines have parents, tens of thousands of them working around the clock, day and night. Young and middle-aged. War vet James Thornborough, invalided from the African campaign. And a war bride with a husband who saw action. And newcomer Steve Sorovsky, who still needs a guide to show him what to do and how. Here's Steve Komisiak, who's been with Packard 41 years. These engines have ancestors, a pride of ancestry, and a history dating from the early days. It was 30 years ago in 1915 at the beginning of another war. A new world was bursting in upon a civilization that seems quaint to us now. Autos still remembered they had once been buggies, and the directors of a young auto company, Packard, looking farther ahead than they knew, decided to set aside $250,000 for the development of an aircraft engine. Here in the Packard Hall of Fame is what they came up with. Old 299, named from the cubic inches of its piston displacement. Since there were no facilities at that time for testing an engine in a plane, the famous auto racer, Ralph De Palma, was hired to see what it could do on the ground. It could do plenty. It could win 5 races in one afternoon in 1916 at Sheepshead Bay and establish records in each. Satisfied those principles were correct, an engine 3 times as big, the 905, was made. It broke the world's mile record at 149.4 miles per hour and ran 20 miles, averaging 134 miles per hour. Out of that engine, 905, came the Liberty motor of World War I, co-designed and built in volume by Packard. Then we were asked to build the engines for the Navy's first dirigible. They had to be able to run 300 hours without an overhaul instead of 50, the former requirement. The Shenandoah was bent on seeing the world with no stopovers for tinkering. We made a lot of engines in those years. Engine 1500, which normally ran upside down, powered Boeing 66, world's fastest standard fighting ship. We built the first engine designed specifically for a tank. Before 1924, any engine strong enough and sturdy would do for a tank. That same year, a Navy PN-9 with two 600-horsepower Packards set 7 world and 20 American records. The next year, one of them flew to Honolulu, 1,841 miles, which was another record. In 1926, we wound up and delivered our 24-cylinder X engine, the most powerful in the world. Just then, an air-cooled engine took over American aviation. What's the difference? If nobody wants a liquid-cooled inline engine in the air, put it in the water and make a clean sweep of speedboat racing for a decade. The Gold Cup, the sweepstakes, and the Harmsworth races were by way of becoming the private preserve of Packard power. We were learning how close an engine can come to making a wingless boat fly. Miss America 10 set a world's record of 124.9 miles per hour. And that's about where matters stood when the World's Fair opened in Flushing Meadow. The world was at peace. At least we were permitted to think so for a little longer. The evening fireworks were very popular. Aerial torpedoes exploded so loudly you could actually feel a slight concussion. But the Navy was already working on an idea they called a patrol torpedo boat. It was a speedboat for fighting. And when the Navy called for an engine to put in this boat, Packard was first in line. It was more than 2 years before Pearl Harbor. Navy orders 7 Packard Marine engines. 7 months later, Navy orders 81 Packard Marine engines. 1 year to go to Pearl Harbor. Navy orders 720 Packard Marine engines. 5 months to go. U.S. Navy and Great Britain order 900 more Packard Marine engines. This was only Packard's pre-war beginning. Here comes a mighty battle wagon with a strange burden. The Rolls-Royce engine, with a blanket permission to manufacture, was being brought to the United States with maximum safety. Not content with one such problem of its own making, Packard in the summer of 1940 rushed in where others feared to tread. Only Packard thought this hand-fitted job of more than 14,000 parts could be mass-produced. Like the Marine engine, this baby has a history. It goes back to the first Rolls-Royce aircraft engine for World War I, 25 years ago. It goes back to the power plant of a slim racer, the British Snyder Cup entrant of 1931. This was the engine that beat the Luftwaffe against terrible odds. On September 2nd, 1940, 700 German planes rained fire, death, and destruction on London. The following day, Packard signed a contract to deliver 6,000 engines to Great Britain. The next week, a contract for thousands more was signed with the United States. How do you do it? How does Packard turn out 50, 60, 70,000 of these fantastically complicated engines, marine and air, in the following war years? You grow. You're a mile long to begin with. You grow fast. Ground was broken for this engineering and assembly building a month before the architects finished their plans. 78 test cells invite 78 roaring engines to run their 6-hour tests simultaneously. Another mushroom of the so-called 10-month miracle of construction was the tear-down and reassembly building. The heat treat building was 4th of the new structures rushed to completion for the Rolls-Royce assignment. When the production ante had been upped a few more times, this new $5 million Toledo war plant was taken over to continue the expansion. Road tracks, a matter of blocks away, more space was rented in a Milwaukee Avenue plant. But the new plants were not enough. Auto manufacturing machinery moved out. Almost none of them could be used. They waited in their skins of grease under coverings for some future day. Meanwhile, Packard engineers were working round the clock, redrawing to American production needs more than 2,000 English left-handed blueprints. Additional thousands of jigs and fixtures were specified for the gigantic shop task ahead. Then were installed the giant, medium, and midget machines of mass production. Here's the 48 spindle Bosch, reaming its 48 holes with a single operation. The drill presses make holes as fine as the point of a needle through metal hard enough to withstand the shock of an explosion. Yes, they're women. At that time, almost half the Packard payroll was women. Before the war, they didn't number 1 in 10. They were another part of our answer to the incredible expansion. A woman's light touch has helped in the inspection of parts so delicate they must be handled in tissue paper. A drop of acid perspiration can etch and eventually crack a piece of metal. When a few 100,000 machines, gauges, and instruments had done their jobs, the parts flowed into the main assembly line. 10,000 parts for a Packard marine engine, 14,000 for a Rolls-Royce. One engine is enough to make your brain whirl, but here they come like elephants in a circus parade, head to tail. An icebox full of dry ice cools parts before fitting into place. When warm, they expand to a tighter than perfect fit. The line moves too fast for one huge factory to supply all its parts. Some are farmed out to smaller shops and factories. The exhaust stacks of the test building are visible proof of the careful check being made inside. For it's never enough to just make this engine. You can't be content because it runs. Will each one keep on running under the stress and strain of battle action? The answer lies in arduous open throttle tests. So put gauges to its vitals, run it under its own power for 6 hours and see. Then after this dynamometer test, every engine is taken apart, washed, cleaned, inspected, and put together again. The U-shaped tear-down and reassembly line on and within which all this happens is another one of the Packard firsts. To the layman, all seems confusion, but actually every move is purposeful, thought out to that ultimate efficiency necessary for the handling of such a complex machine in mass production. When an engine has been brought to that kind of condition, off again, on again twice, the least you can do is protect it. Wrap it up in super cellophane. Pack it in a vacuum with moisture-controlling crystal, because that engine deserves the best. Ready to go, it rests in a weatherproof box, and our job is done. That's what we thought when the bottom was kicked out of the world Americans were trying to live in. Men went to war, labor was hard to get, war materials grew scarce, and we were asked to increase our production of marine engines threefold. Only 47 engines in the Rolls-Royce contract had been completed of the thousands to come. More space, more employees, more women at work, and improved mass production helped, but never enough. Our Management Labor Work to Win campaign, conceived a month after Pearl Harbor, attacked the problem from inspirational, educational, and competitive angles. Its most successful outcome was the suggestion box. Employees of all departments could do their bits toward improving production. In a little over 2 years, Packard's people made 31,331 suggestions, over half of a mechanical nature. Some 5,000 were put into effect in the shops. Fred Ospedale, an aircraft engine assembler and gang leader, was invited to the White House to be honored for his innovations. Awards were given by the War Production Board to 156 Packard employees for production shortcuts useful on a national scale. Tens of thousands of Packard workers put their minds to cutting engine cost and the taxpayer's bill. Pooled together, the sum total of production spirit was greater than the individual contributions. It all adds up to nearly 70,000 engines for hot airplanes like this, for mighty midgets like these. We have the deep satisfaction of knowing that no builder such as Elco at Bayonne, who turned out the greatest share of the Navy's PT craft, ever had to wait for an engine. And 3 of our marine engines go into a single PT boat. Lieutenant Commander A.R. Montgomery, commanding officer of a torpedo boat squadron, said, "It is an inspiration to see where the Packard marine engines are built. And it is mighty reassuring to know you're backed by these engines when in action against the enemy." Lieutenant Commander John D. Bulkley of They Were Expendable fame told how his PT boat engines in the Philippines and off New Guinea did 4 times the service normally expected of them. He said to a Packard group, "Your work has helped save my life and that of my crew many times. If the engines had failed us during any critical moments while at close quarters with the Japs, I wouldn't be here today." With Bulkley, as with all others in the PT boats, the one requisite was speed, and what went with it, dependability. The boat skimmed the water like a seaplane taking off. They bounced from wave top to wave top. They dodged attacking planes. They played tag with enemy gunfire in a game that was for keeps. Can you imagine the men in those boats failing to feel gratitude for the power that helped them win their bets against death? As it was with the marine engines, so with the Packard version of the Rolls-Royce. It reminds us of the thousands of precautions we lavish on our engines to guarantee that they're perfect and will remain so under the most difficult conditions. This Magnaflux ferrets out metallic flaws invisible to the naked eye. The oscillograph uses electric waves to test for balance and freedom from the vibrations that increase dangerously with wear. New bearing materials of silver, lead, and indium have taught the engineers how to increase the lifespan of engines, be they air, water, or ground. Most spectacular of the many new heat-treating methods which burn greater endurance into materials is the night riding oven. These and many other processes, inventions, and refinements helped fill in the great panorama of Packard at war. They spell better product, longer life, lighter, stronger, more powerful, and more efficient. This means we will be able to give you more for your money. These efforts foretell an auto of the future that will be benefited in every respect. Any young pilot or PT man wanting a post-war Packard because his service taught him to doesn't have to depend on that alone. He could ask one of the people who own a Packard Clipper bought before the war and still going strong. Their endurance is a guarantee of the continuity of the Packard effort. But the young man doesn't need to ask. When a man or machine is battle-tested, that's final. When men have bet their lives and won on Packard-built engines, it's not luck. It's a habit. It's the habit of precision manufacture, too strong to break down come war or mass production. It's the teamwork of Packard people who stand shoulder to shoulder for the best in war or in peace. Packard is a continuous story, for the wheels of normal American industry are rolling again. So are the wheels of new cars, Packard cars. This means that new dealers will be coming into the Packard organization. New blood, many of them, for example, keen, mature young men from the armed services.
This is the reception desk. Major Carr to see Mr. Slack. Fine. I'll send him right up.
Thanks a lot.
Major Carr, come in. Glad to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Slack. I've been looking forward to this.
Have a chair.
Thanks.
Well, Major, I suppose you've come in to see how Packard builds those aircraft engines.
No, Mr. Slack, the fact of the matter is, I've sort of come here on personal business. I'd like to talk about doing business with Packard.
Well, that's interesting. You've come to the right place. What's on your mind?
I'm in a position to invest in something permanent. It happens no one deals in Packards in my own hometown. And I've been thinking about a Packard dealership.
What part of the country do you come from, Major? If your town has the potential for a profitable Packard business and doesn't yet have a dealership, then we'll find it marked here on this map.
There it is, Middleston, Iowa. Apparently you think it's a good Packard market.
You bet it is. Based on our post-war plans, there's an opportunity in every one of these open points. But all of these pins are going to be removed soon. These open points are really being closed up fast. You see, we had our sights set on an annual production of 200,000 Packards before the war. Now we're just beginning to pick up where we left off. And for the kind of alert, progressive men we're looking for, there's still a number of real opportunity spots here and there around the country.
Yes? Well, I've had some selling experience, but none of it's been in the automotive field. Do you think I could make a go of it?
Well, I can tell you this. We'd go all out to help you. What do you say we take a look at this Packard proposition?
Good.
Here is a typical American city, a sky view of an opportunity. Here, through the turn of circumstance, is a prospering community in which, at the moment, there is no Packard dealer. A market, yes, wide open. Here is an opportunity to tie in with Packard and build a strong, prosperous business on a permanent basis. Why is this true? Because of new plans based on the mutual interest of Packard and its dealers. Because of new policies, a product competitively styled and priced. And because of the sound, practical intent of the Packard Motor Car Company to step up production and sales to 200,000 cars a year. This is double the previous high before the war. How is it that this new goal is both possible and practical? Ballooned up production goals can be set at fantastic heights. But what goes up must come down. Sales quotas based upon a pent-up war-inflated demand will tumble when the bubble bursts. The Packard goal of 200,000 cars is not a temporary, opportunistic figure based on the post-war rush. It is a figure determined long before Pearl Harbor, soundly estimated and logically conceived. It is an engineered figure based upon the true capacity of an enlarged and modernized plant. This volume in normal years enables Packard to build new and better cars, competitively priced, and of traditional Packard quality. Packard has counseled wisely and well, and by so doing, they have broadened and enhanced the opportunity for every Packard dealer. Packard planning, never hasty nor opportunistic, goes back to the early 20s and before, when the fine custom-built machines were the pride of the fortunate few who possessed them. Then the shift with the times toward a broader market with the introduction of the famous 120 marked a new phase in Packard planning. Foresightedness, forehandedness, a transition period bridging over to the greater third cycle of the Packard story, which begins with the Clipper, a bold new departure that succeeded because of planning over the years. And today, the most progressive merchandising plans in the industry are being implemented by factory-dealer relationships, which are the best that enlightened goodwill can design. The new dealer's sales agreement is the new model, the pacemaker of the industry. The progressive benefits for Packard dealers need no stronger testimony than a reading of the agreement itself. The sum and substance of Packard's view to the future is based upon sound policies of aid to the dealer. The new zone policy streamlines the entire distribution system, brings the dealer closer to the factory with benefits for each. By distributing through zone operations, the dealer is offered the best in fair treatment and service aid. A foremost step in developing plans for the future was the creation of the Packard Dealer Advisory Council. Are they yes men? No, sir, no indeed. These 8 men, representing all types of dealerships from all over the country, are expected to speak out, and they do, sharing their know-how with the central factory organization. As a first fruit of the Dealer Council, the Dealer Equities Board was created for the benefit of all Packard dealers. As the proof of the pudding, it is the guarantee of fair play for every man who holds the franchise. Packard's aids to the dealer cover such matters as organization, aid in analysis of personnel needs and breakdown of sales potential, plant design, professional help in locating and building the most desirable dealership, business management, simplified accounting, budget setups, profit and loss statements, exchanges of operating figures, all offered free to dealers by zone and factory experts. Sales promotion. A large and experienced sales organization provides useful counsel to every Packard dealer. Sales training. Packard's experienced aid will help the dealer who is starting from scratch due to post-war reconstruction. Advertising. A generous background of award-winning copy outstanding in the automotive field. Compensation plans. A recommended scale of remuneration for car and accessory sales and a demonstrator plan designed to raise the level of the automobile selling profession. Mechanics training program. Good and profitable service calls for better mechanics. Here, the visual arts will be a tremendous aid.
Well, Major, that's our story, at least the highlights. How does it sound to you?
It sounds swell, but I guess you really don't have to sell me. I bet my life on Packard-built engines and won. That's why I'm interested in a Packard franchise.
Yes, and he got that franchise. He's a civilian now, a Packard dealer. And he and every other Packard dealer will be betting to win. Betting on a sure thing.